I took up a job as a night security guard. I shouldn't have. When I first saw the ad, I didn't think twice. Earn up to $80 per night with our simple job as a night guard. No prior experience required. That's what the ad said. So I submitted my resume as fast as I could, fearing that it could disappear or be taken by someone else at any moment. Not 2 hours later after submitting my application, I got a response on my email that I'd been hired and I can start tonight. It kinda struck me as odd that there was no job interview and that I needed to start work right away. But hey, maybe they just urgently needed someone. I've been jobless for like a year now, so I naively ignored any red flags and was just happy to have a job. I went to the given address at 8 p.m. It turned out to be an office building. "Hello?" I called as I entered, but no one responded. The hall was engulfed in darkness, and the only source of light was coming through a pane of glass on the door, which had the name Security on it. So I knocked on the door. Again, no response. I decided to open it up, and sure enough, it was empty. On the desk was a note, left clear as day just for me to read, and it said, "To the new night guard. Your shift starts at 8:04 p.m. and ends at 4:04 a.m. When you arrive in the building and relieve the other guard of your duty, you can stay in the security room as long as you want. But you have to use the elevator to get to the top floor once at any time during the shift. Once up there, you have to proceed to the end of the attic, flip a switch on the wall. That's it. If the other guard is not in the security room by the time of your arrival, make a report on the notebook and we will inform his family. As for your duty, it's very likely that when you push the top elevator button, 25, the elevator will go past that floor, and it may appear that you stopped on floor 33. If this happens, do not push any of the buttons, since the elevator will not work. Go forward through the hallway. Note that the flashlight may not do much to illuminate the area, but still bring it with you. There's a spare in the drawer. Some people report hearing or seeing office workers at their desk, coming from adjacent rooms. You may see them doing something like typing on a computer which is not turned on, or typing one word over and over on the screen. You must ignore them at all costs. It is currently unknown if these employees are real or a manifestation of the mind, but ignoring them should keep you safe. Turn left when you reach the end of the hallway. You may sometimes see a man standing in the middle, blocking your way. He will do you no harm, so long as you maintain eye contact with him. You have to get past him, so put your hand on the wall to your right or left, and slide it across the wall, as to avoid stumbling or losing any eye contact with the man. He will keep following you with his gaze and try to distract you. Reports indicate that he may point behind you with the look of fear on his face to try to get you to look away. You may also hear loud crashing sound or voices right next to you. You must ignore them. Once you reach the end of the hall and around the corner, and not a moment sooner, you're safe from that individual. When you reach the exit which leads to the staircase, proceed down. Make note of what floor you're on. Any and if only the floor starts repeating on your way down, immediately go back up to floor 33, and then start the descent again. If you happen to see any other stair doors open, proceed carefully, especially focusing on the ceiling or underside of the stairs. You may start to hear footsteps coinciding with your own. Don't stop and don't turn around. Just proceed as you normally would. If you feel that the footsteps are getting closer, go faster, but try not to arouse suspicion. If you hear a high-pitched scream coming from above, it can sound like a mountain lion. Run down to floor 25 as fast as you can, and pray that you're faster than whatever it is chasing you. If you're forced to continue going down despite the floors repeating, enter the closest door. You will likely find yourself back at the hallway of floor 33. So, just simply repeat the steps as before. Once you reach floor 25, you're in the clear. First call the elevator, and then jam the door to keep it open. Press floor 1 on the button pad, and then go back to the switch. After flipping the switch, the lights will go out. At this point, you will hear screams all around you, similarly to the ones described before. Run to the elevator as fast as you can while unjamming the door. If you did everything correctly, you should have at least 5 extra seconds to close the elevator before the entities of the building can reach you. You should go back to the first floor security room once the elevator stops. You may spend the rest of your shift in there, however long you desire, so long as you do not leave the property between 8:04 p.m. and 4:04 a.m. Note that leaving the property and the building at any given moments between the mentioned times will put you back on floor 33. Also note, not flipping the switch before 4:04 a.m. will result in you not being able to leave the building. Thank you for performing your duties. Management. It's 1:24 a.m. right now, and the elevator doors just opened up on their own. Part 2. I barely made it through the building. It was mentally agonizing beyond words. At 2 a.m. I entered the elevator, which had been open for almost a half an hour prior to that. I took the note with me and followed the rules as they were written. The elevator stopped on floor 33, despite my hopes. There was a sound of someone typing just to my left, and when I peeked through the shattered glass, I saw a guy in formal attire sitting at an old PC that was just layered with dust and wasn't even turned on, typing away vigorously. He'd even glance over his shoulder and call out to his imaginary, or invisible, co-workers, saying things like, "Do you have that report ready, Cindy?" Or, "The client said we should meet at 2 p.m. I tried not to look at him as I tiptoed through the hallway and turned left. The man in the coat stood in front of me, and he was staring right at me. I knew I had to maintain eye contact with him, so I slowly went past him. The entire time he tried to distract me by pretending he was about to hit me, hoping I would flinch, pointing at things behind me in pretty convincing manners with a look of horror on his face. Stuff like that. I swear at one point he even screamed, "Watch out!" right in my ear. Luckily, I made it unscathed, and going down to floor 25 was uneventful. I made it to the hallway on 25, flipped the switch and ran back to the elevator, as these blood-curdling screams echoed from all around me. The elevator doors closed just in time to hear something heavy slam into it with full force. Luckily, the elevator started descending, and the screams slowly faded away. The elevator stopped on floor 1, but it wouldn't open. I pressed the open button in vain, but then the elevator started to go down. I slammed the number 1 button over and over, but the elevator didn't respond. It went down for what seemed like an impossible amount of time, descending, by my estimation, at least 15 to 20 floors down. And then it finally stopped and the doors opened. In front of me was some kind of waiting room with a sofa and a lamp on the table next to it. There was a door opposite the elevator. I pressed the buttons over and over and over, but nothing happened. It was clear that the elevator wanted me to step into this floor. Sure enough, just as I did, the doors closed again. The elevator went back up. I cursed, frustrated, and scared shitless. I inspected the room just when I realized that there was a hastily written note on the lamp table. I picked it up and here's what it said. "If you're reading this, that means you fell for the trap just like me. The good news is, you made it through the first task on floor 25. The bad news is, there is no job and you aren't going to get paid. Whoever these guys are, they're running some kind of experiment on us like we're lab rats. We need to get the fuck out of here and call the police. Read this next part carefully because, well, your life depends on it. When you go through the door on your left, you'll find yourself in some kind of mansion. You need to make it to the 3rd floor. It won't be easy, so you have to follow these rules. Floor number 1. Go through the hallway, but whatever you do, don't fucking look to the mirror on your left. You may see with your peripheral a reflection of you mimicking your own movement or just facing and staring at you. Do not look at it. Close your eyes if you have to. Once you're past the mirror, turn left and go straight. You may hear the toilet flush in the bathroom on your right. If that happens, hide immediately. There's a closet pretty close by. Hide inside and don't make a sound until the old man comes out of the bathroom and is gone. Wait at least 1 full minute before going out. Once you're clear of that, find the stairs and climb them to the main hall of the 2nd floor. Floor number 2. Turn right and take the 2nd door on your left. It'll be a blue door. I have no idea what happens if you take any of the other doors or turn left. Once you go through the blue door, you'll find yourself in a big room full of mannequin. Dozens of mannequins will be on both sides. You may hear giggling, and some of them may change the direction of their gazes and their positions or poses when you're not looking. But I don't think any of them will harm you, if you don't disturb them. If any of the mannequins' head drop to the floor and roll in front of you, run as fast as you can and close the door behind you once you're out. You should be close to the stairs by now. Follow the hall that winds down. Don't worry about any voices that you hear from any of the adjacent rooms, even if they beg you to come help them. If you hear or see any doors opening, hide again. The old man might seem like someone you can overpower pretty easily, but don't even fucking think about it. Once he's gone, then climb the stairs. Floor number 3. Remember that man from floor 33 that you had to keep eye contact with? He might be here, but he's going to be more aggressive this time. You're going to hear screams, something like, "I got you now," right behind you, but ignore it. You'll also start to feel a stinging or burning sensation in your eyes. Do your best not to blink. If you have to blink, try not to keep your eyes closed for more than a second. Maintain eye contact with him as you go through the hall, until you can turn left. Left from the original position. That means you're right as you're facing the man backwards. If you see a woman in a patient's gown standing in front of the elevator facing away from you, just stand next to her and wait for the elevator. If she asks you to come in the elevator with her, politely decline. If she doesn't say anything, you can step in the elevator with her, but don't talk to her. Just stare in front of yourself. Once you're in the elevator, you'll see there are no buttons inside, and the elevator will start going on its own. When the elevator stops, wait until the woman steps out and stay inside, until the elevator starts moving again. If she asks you if you'll come with her, again, politely decline. Once the door closes, the elevator should go up a few more floors. Now, if the woman was not there at all, but once you take the elevator and she should enter when the door opens, exit immediately. I don't know where you'll be, and I have no idea what you need to do there, so you're on your own. Let's just hope that you don't run into her. I came back to give you this warning, compiled from my own and other people's experiences. Chances are that I either made it out, or I'm dead somewhere along the way. If you manage to get out, expose these motherfuckers and don't let anyone else get fucked over. Good luck. The guard who came before you. You've gotta be fucking kidding me, was my first thought. 10 minutes later, though, I was clear and managed to get to the elevator by following every rule the guard laid out. I was lucky, though. Aside from the old man in the bathroom, no one else bothered me. I heard some giggling and a set of footsteps in the mannequin room, but neither the man nor the patient woman were present. I also managed to safely take the elevator, my heart thumping the entire way so fast that I thought it was going to burst out of my chest. The elevator started to go up and I prayed I would be back at reception. My hopes were short-lived, though, because when the elevator stopped and the doors opened, I was in what looked like an advanced security room with a bunch of camera feeds across the entire wall. On the desk next to the keyboard, there was another note. Part 3. I sat at the desk in front of the camera screens, because I felt like I really needed a respite from the ordeal before. I was so tired and just scared. On one hand, I felt really vulnerable without a weapon. On the other hand, I felt kinda glad that I didn't have anything that I could use to end myself. I tried not to think that suicide could prevent far worse fates. I glanced at the camera feed. It seemed to be covering some sort of rundown hospital. No one was on any of the cameras. Well, except for one. That patient lady from before was peeking around the corner of one of the cameras, as if she was waiting to give someone a jump scare. I looked down at the note in front of me. It said, "Still alive? Good. You're going to need to follow even stricter set of rules in order to get past this area, especially making sure that you're doing things according to specific times. First off, no matter when you enter the room, the alarm clock on the desk is going to say 3:19 a.m. I glanced at the small clock in front of me, 3:19 a.m., and it just turned to 3:20. I continued reading. You need to follow these rules according to the times. Do not be late nor early anywhere. That is the most important part. First off, look at the camera screens, and check to see if the staring man is anywhere on them. If he is, you'll see him staring directly at the camera. Turn it off and then back on again. He should be gone. If he's not, repeat this until he is. Take some time and rest and repair. At exactly 3:35 a.m., go out and conduct a patrol around the building, as if you were on a regular guard duty. You need to check every room on floors 1 and 2, and you need to be back to the security room by 4 a.m. While you're patrolling, you may see a doctor in one of the rooms. He usually just appears out of nowhere. The room is usually empty at one moment, and then you turn around and there he is, performing surgery on a mangled corpse. If you see him, back away slowly and try to exit the room without being noticed. If he calls after you, don't ignore him. He'll ask you to assist him by giving him surgical tools from the tray. So just do what he asks. Try not to give him the wrong tools though, otherwise you might be one of his next things that he's going to dissect. You probably saw the woman peeking behind the corner on the camera by now. Don't worry, she'll be gone during your patrol. Once you're done with the patrol, get back to the camera room. You may sometimes see another guard sitting at the desk when you return. You can talk to him normally like you would a friend or a coworker. Try not to tell him about your current predicament. At 4:15 he'll say he needs to conduct a patrol, and as soon as he leaves, lock the room behind him. From 4:15 to 4:30, you may hear knocking on the door and rattling of the doorknob, but you'll see no one on the camera covering the outside of the security room. Ignore the knocking and rattling, no matter how incessant it becomes. Even if you hear desperate cries for help in voices of women or children, or even the guard before you, do not open the door. They can't get inside if you don't let them, so you should be safe. 4:30 to 4:40. You have a break, so take a moment to recuperate. Do not take a nap. From 4:40 a.m., you should focus on the cameras. You'll start to feel pretty sleepy. No matter what you do, you must not fall asleep. As you get sleepier, you'll start to notice movement in your peripheral and start to feel like someone is in the room with you, even standing right over your shoulder and breathing. Just focus on the cameras, no matter how vivid the presence becomes. At 5 a.m., if you happen to hear any raspy breathing from the ceiling, don't look up. Close your eyes and count to 10. You'll feel cold fingers touching you, and the raspy breathing will be in your ear. But whatever you do, keep your eyes closed until it all stops completely. Continue focusing on the cameras until 5:29, but do not leave the security room under any circumstances. At exactly 5:29, get ready to move quickly. As soon as the clock ticks to 5:30 a.m., and not a second sooner, unlock the door and run for it. Run straight into the elevator at the end of the hallway. Ignore any growling behind you. Don't look behind you, because you're going to need every second here. The elevator door will be open and it will automatically close and take you out of there once you're in. I'll be waiting for you on the other side. Good luck, brother. The guard who came before you. I placed down the note and exhaled sharply. It was 3:24 a.m. I glanced at the cameras. The staring man was on one of the cameras. I restarted it and sure enough, in less than a second the camera was off. He just disappeared. At 3:35 a.m., I went outside, conducting my patrol carefully, but still doing my best to hurry up. I would glance at my watch every minute or so. As I finished the last room and was about to exit, I heard someone humming behind me. I turned around and saw the surgeon in blood-stained clothes dissecting a corpse that was on the table, which was not previously there. I froze, but the doc was just transfixed on the surgery, humming more violently as he sawed through the corpse's arm. Seeing this broke me out of my trance and I slowly backed away, reaching for the door. As I turned around to face the exit, I stopped dead in my tracks. "Aha!" the doc exclaimed. I turned around, heart ready to explode. Almost forgot to take care of this. The doc grabbed a scalpel and continued cutting into the corpse, paying no attention to me. I silently exhaled in relief and slowly left the place. As soon as I was a safe distance, I sprinted back to the security room. The room was empty. No guard like was mentioned in the note. I locked the door and continued to follow the agonizing rules on the list until 5:29 a.m., ignoring everything else in the room until then. As soon as the clock ticked 5:30, I heard a growl behind me. I opened up the door and ran faster than I ever knew was possible, while the growling behind me turned into something that sounded like a demonic barking. It kept getting closer and closer. I ran into the elevator, practically ramming the back of it with my shoulder. I turned just in time to see a pair of red eyes staring at me from the hallway, just before the doors closed. The elevator started going up and stopped shortly after. When it opened, I found myself in an empty room with an electronic door on the other side. The only two things that contracted the white walls were a monitor mounted on one of the walls and a silhouette of a person in a dark uniform. He had a sign which said "Security" on the back. "I finally found you," I smiled and stepped out of the elevator. The guard looked at me confused, so I tried to explain who I was and thanked him for leaving me the notes. He shook his head. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "You said in your note that you'd be waiting for me on the other side," I replied. "What note? Look, bro, I'm just trying to find my way out of here. I've been trying to find a way to open this door for ages." He looked more confused than I was at this point. "Dude, I've been following the notes you left. You said you'd be here, so just cut the bullshit." I took out the note and handed it to him. He inspected it with a pretty serious look on his face. Then he looked at me and said, "Afraid you got the wrong guy, buddy. This isn't my handwriting." "Well, if it wasn't you, then who was it?" Just then, the monitor on the wall turned on, and a message flashed across the screen. Part 4. "Welcome, new recruits." The message on the monitor displayed before disappearing. A new message replaced it, and the guard and I had to get pretty close to read what it said. "You've done well so far. You're not far from reaching your goal. But know that your tasks will get harder from here on out. You'll have to work as a team to survive. This door will open in 1 minute. You will see a guardhouse on your left. Enter it and read the note." As soon as we were done reading, the monitor turned off and an electric door opened with a loud hum. A cold gust of air hit me in the face immediately as we stepped through the door. I realized that we were outside in some sort of park. "What the fuck?" the other guard said. "Maybe we can just run for it. I mean, fuck their rules, right?" I shook my head. "There's gotta be a catch. They wouldn't just let us leave. This probably isn't even real. Let's go check the guardhouse first." We went inside the guardhouse, which had a desk and a chair inside. The note on top of the desk was next to a clock, which read 5 after midnight. The note said, "Out of all the rules, there are 3 main rules that you need to strictly follow at all times. The first rule is never, ever go off the trail. If you do, getting lost will be the least of your troubles. Never stay together for too long, because it attracts them more easily to you. That is the second rule." Ending with the first 2 rules, the third rule is, whenever the guards reunite, they should use code phrases. Example, Guard 1, "Where does the cat go?" Guard 2, "To the alley." Note that the code must be received exactly how the code is agreed upon, word for word. Moving on to the rest of the rules. 1 guard should stay at the guardhouse, while the other guard patrols around the park. Patrols usually take about 10 minutes. For the guard patrolling. Under no circumstances is the guard allowed to leave the trail when patrolling. See Rule 1. Turn left at the crossroads and you will come back full circle to the guardhouse. If you happen to hear any other guard's voice coming from the trees, calling for help, whatever, ignore it. You will hear his voice on a loop, repeating the same phrase with the same cadence over and over. Pay attention to the sounds of animal life too. If the park suddenly becomes quiet, finish your patrol normally. Do not look behind or glance at the trees. During your patrol, every 5 minutes or so, loudly shout 1 simple word, like "hello," into the air. If your voice doesn't echo, run back to the guardhouse immediately. Should you see a hiker in the middle of the trail, keep your flashlight pointed at his face at all times. He will ask you to move it away, that it's too bright. Don't listen to him. He will also tell you that he understands your situation. He will tell you to follow him since he knows the way out. Decline his offer. After this, he should leave. Do not take your light off of him until he steps off the trail. For the guard in the guardhouse. To stay safe, keep the door and windows firmly shut at all times. Save for when the patrolling guard comes back. It may get annoyingly hot inside, but do not open anything. You may take off your jacket or your shirt to alleviate the discomfort. Do not pay attention to any tapping on the windows. If you hear droplets falling on the desk in front of you, slowly stand up and leave the guardhouse. Stay outside for 2 to 3 minutes, and the droplets should be gone by the time you come back inside. If they're still there, exit and wait again for another 2 to 3 minutes. When the patrolling guard returns, ask him the code question while avoiding eye contact. If he doesn't respond or responds incorrectly, exit the guardhouse while avoiding eye contact, then return inside. The fake guard should be gone. If you survive until 1 a.m., both guards together should proceed to the end of the trail and turn right at the crossroads. Do not do this before 1 a.m. At this point, the forest life will become completely silent, and the only sound surrounding you will be the occasional hurried footsteps coming off the trail. They can only approach you in the dark, so do your best to keep your flashlights on them, even if you can't see them clearly. The guards should divide to cover both sides with light. End your task by reaching the end of the trail with the gate. This is your exit point. Make sure you take this note with you. You'll need it. Damn it, the other guard said, as we sat in silence for a moment. I scratched my cheek and said, "Alright, I'll take first patrol. What should be our code?" He thought for a moment and then he said, "Shit, I don't know, man. How about this? What should these fuckers do?" And then you could say, "Let us go." You got it. What's your name, by the way? I asked. The guard said his name was Sam, and I introduced myself as well. I left for patrol with the flashlight and stuck strictly to the trail. Nothing major happened. No sounds off trail, etc. But I did run into the hiker mentioned in the note. He seemed friendly and all, but I followed the rules and kept the beam pointed at his face, declining everything he asked. Eventually, he just left. I finished my patrol and returned to the guardhouse. After we confirmed the codes, Sam left for his own patrol. I followed the set of rules until he came back, confirming the code with him. By the time I finished my third patrol, it was 1:03 a.m., and it was time to go. We quietly walked down the trail, focusing on our own footsteps and the deafening silence around us. And then the footsteps off trail started. It sounded like someone was frantically running from one tree to another, stopping only for a few seconds in between. This happened over and over as Sam and I did our best to focus the beam of light on whatever the source of the sound was. No matter how quick our reactions were, we never quite seemed to be able to catch who was ever out there. I caught a glimpse of a nude, emaciated man or woman here and there, but they seemed to be just out of reach, hiding between the trees just for the moment I shone my light, or disappearing into the dark altogether. Finally, Sam and I got to the end of the trail. We entered a fenced-in area with a gate on the other side. There was a pedestal in the middle with an object on it. When we approached, it became increasingly clear that the object was a gun, with a note underneath it. Sam took the note and read it aloud. Read the first letter of each paragraph of the previous note. We both looked at the note and read the letters silently together. O-N-E-M-U-S-T-D-I-E. Then, as the realization hit us, we scrambled for the gun. After a moment of wrestling, the gun was in my hand, and I held it pointed out at Sam. "Don't do this, man. I have a wife and daughter, please," he begged. I held my finger on the trigger, immediately looking at him and the gate. I had to get out of here too. I've had enough of this bullshit. I looked at Sam's pleading face one more time. A second later, I lowered and then dropped the gun on the ground. I said, "I'm not going to play their game. I won't become a killer for their entertainment. We can find a different way out of here, I'm sure." "Sorry, man." I turned around and saw him pointing the gun directly at me. "What are you doing, Sam?" "You read the note, man. One of us must die. There is no other way." "Put the gun down, damn it. We can both make it out of here alive. We gotta work together." I didn't even believe my own words, but I'd be damned if I'd be murdered by some other human being with these sick bastards for their entertainment. "I'm sorry, man. I gotta get back to my family," he said. "Sam, no!" He pulled the trigger, but the bang never came. Instead, it was just the sound of a Click. Sam dropped the gun, holding his hand in pain. What the fuck? What the fuck? Something pricked me, he shouted. He and I stared at each other for a moment. Then, all of a sudden, Sam's eyes rolled back into his head. He fell on the ground, convulsing and frothing at the mouth. I ran over to help him, but I didn't know what to do. He stopped moving completely, and just a moment later, his eyes closed altogether. His breathing stopped along with his movement. I shook him and called his name, but it was too late. He was already dead. Just then, the gate started to open. Part 5. I knew I couldn't afford to waste any more time, so I went through the gate, leaving Sam's body behind. I listened as the gate closed and the ground beneath my feet started moving. Then the lights came on. I realized I was in a big elevator which started descending. Part of me have somehow come to terms with the fact that I was probably going to die here. But for some reason, when you're in a situation where you feel like your life is at stake, you desperately want to get out by any means necessary. Your body defies your wish to give up and pushes you to fight on. The elevator stopped and the gate opened up, revealing a dark, damp room in front of me. There was a little cart next to the door on the other side. A folder lay on top of the cart, with a circular logo with the name The Company on the front. Below was the motto, "Your safety is our success." When I opened up the folder, I saw Sam's face. It must have been his file. I saw everything about him, including age, family, and even some behavioral patterns that were observed by these fucking freaks. And then on the next page was my file. They knew everything about me, not just my age, nationality, etc., but also my ways of thinking and everything I'd been through in the test so far. They even had predictions about my behavior before I even did something. They knew my every move. The last page underneath the file was a note. It said, "Congratulations on surviving so far. You only have one task left to complete before you get your reward. That is, to reach the elevator on the other side of this area. The list of the rules for the final part are as follows. Once you are through the door, proceed straight to the corridor. Do not look, get close, or touch any of the glass on the left or right, despite the irresistible urge. Do not stop longer than 2 seconds at a time. During this time, you will hear whispers coming from either side of the glass. If the whispers suddenly stop, you must run as fast as you can to the next door. Once you reach the door, you will find yourself on a wide bridge. There will be a person on the bridge aimlessly wandering there. He may look weak and drunk, but don't underestimate him. Only move when he's not looking at you, and when he does face you, stand as still as you possibly can. If you see him stop all movement suddenly and go silent, he may have sensed you. The best thing to do is stand still and breathe. He may approach and inspect you, but don't move a muscle until you see him calm down and facing away from you. Don't even think about making a break for the door when you're close to it, and him being some distance away. If he sees you, he will catch you, no matter how close to the door you are. Close that door behind you, and you'll find yourself in a dormitory. You will see pebbles on a wooden plate next to you. Put them in your pocket and make sure you always have at least one ready in your hand. Proceed through the next area as quietly as possible, especially if you hear footsteps and sniffing close by. Be especially aware of creaking floorboards. If you assume you have attracted its attention, toss the pebbles at a distance, just to cause a distraction. Do not run while it's distracted. Do not go for the exit yet, as the creature is standing in your way. Look for room 109. By this point, the creature will most likely be aware of your presence, so get inside the room and lock it as fast as possible. You will see there is nowhere to hide, since the room is empty. Since the creature is blind, run to any corner of the room and stay as quiet as you can. Remain calm as the creature screams and rams into the door. Once it's inside, it will inspect the room and sniff the air. You'll be safe as long as you don't make a sound. After a minute or so, the creature will leave you and you'll be able to exit safely. Exit the dormitory through the back door and close it. When you turn left, you'll see... The rest of the note is just unintelligible, save for a few words in the signature, The Company, below. I narrowed my eyes, scanning the page over and over, but no matter how many times I read it, the text remained the same. I cursed loudly and stuck the page in my pocket, inhaling and exhaling deeply. Final stretch. No matter what happens after this, it'll be over, and I fucking knew it. I opened up the door, and as soon as I did, the whispers came from both sides. It sounded unnatural, as if who was ever on the other side of the glass was mocking me with their friends behind my back for trying to be quiet, but failing. I proceeded through a whole minute of whispers, but they suddenly stopped. Then a loud slamming came on both sides of the glass. Handprints started to appear. First 1, then 2, then 10, 100, 1,000. All in the span of about 10 seconds or so. I sprinted across the corridor and rammed the door with my shoulder. I turned around to close it, but the corridor was calm again. No sounds, no handprints, nothing. I took no chances and shut the door behind me. I turned back and faced the sight before me. It was a wide metallic bridge in the middle of nowhere. There were streetlights on it illuminating the entirety of the area. A frail-looking older person stood in the middle of the bridge, hunched forward and looking like he could barely hold his own weight on his legs. I couldn't see below the bridge, because it was just too dark, but I was definitely somewhere that looked outside. Slowly, I started across the bridge, making sure to stop whenever the person on the bridge looked in my direction. He seemed completely oblivious to my presence when I stood still, since he cut in front of me a couple times without even looking at me. It wasn't until that I was close enough to hear the wheezing sounds coming from the person. It was almost as if he had difficulty breathing. Could he really overpower me? Nevertheless, I crossed the bridge and closed the door. As soon as I entered the dorm, I took the pebbles and perked up my ears. No sounds yet. Hastily, I found room 109, and as soon as my hands touched the doorknob, a blood-curdling scream echoed throughout the hallway. I quickly entered the room and locked it, then rushed into a corner, standing as still as possible, doing my best to steady my breathing. The door started to violently rattle as whatever was on the other side of it was ramming it over and over. I could see with my peripheral vision that the door was about to give way, and soon enough it fell straight off the hinges. A naked, skinny creature with no eyes and a sharp row of teeth burst inside, jerking its head in all directions looking for me. Then it started to intermittently sniff the air, then stopped and listened. I had to clasp my hands over my mouth to stop from whimpering. Soon enough, the creature left the room. I waited a whole minute before sneaking out and sticking my head out and looking in the hallway, still scared shitless. There was no one out there. I proceeded to find the exit. After opening the back door, I found myself in another hallway. I turned left and braced myself, ready to face whatever was in there. In front of me at the end of the hall was an elevator, but between me and the elevator stood none other than the staring man. Our eyes locked and I knew just what to do. I heard screams in my ears. I felt things brushing against me from behind, touching my face and my neck, but I didn't take my eyes off of him. I hurried up to the elevator. It opened on its own. I entered, continuing to stare at the man just before the doors closed. Something unexpected happened. The man nodded and looked away. The elevator started ascending this time. I had no idea where it was going to take me. But before I could even process the thought properly, it opened up again. In front of me was a room that was engulfed in darkness. Only a small beam of light shone in the distance ahead. Hesitantly, I stepped out of the elevator and started walking towards the light. Then more and more lights turned on the ceiling, blinding me for a moment but illuminating the entire room. "Excellent work," a voice in front of me said. It didn't take long for me to realize that I was in some sort of control room, and the voice that was coming from in front of me was from the same place that the beam of light had been. There was a big rotating chair in there, and whoever was talking was facing away from me, so I couldn't see them. "You've successfully completed your assignment," the voice said again. "Who the hell are you? What do you want from me?" I shouted. The chair swung around and a man in a suit was sitting in it. to congratulate you," he said. "I don't usually like going out in the field, but this is a pretty special opportunity." This anger started to boil in me with how nonchalant he was about the whole situation. I started to walk toward him when I heard the very distinctive sound of a gun being cocked right behind my head. "It's okay, Sam," the man said. I turned around to look at my assailant. It was Sam, the security guard, alive and well. "Sam? I watched you die. What the hell is this?" "Sam's an amazing doctor. I'm starting to think he should have gone for a different career," the man in the chair said. "You were in on this the whole time? I don't believe it." I asked him, then faced the man in the chair again. "Well, your test is complete, right? Time to kill me?" "Kill you? Don't be silly. This was a necessary evaluation. We go through a very strict hiring process because we only hire the most suitable candidates. I know the test was stressful, but you passed it with flying colors. The whole $80 per shift thing? Forget that. The money you'll be making will cover all of your debts, medical bills, and then some." I let out a chuckle at the absurdity of the situation and said, "Hiring process? That's what this was? Some kind of orientation for a job the entire time?" "Well, yeah. What our company deals with is not your ordinary guard duty, as you saw back there, and this is why we need to make sure that our candidates don't endanger themselves or others." "So, all those things back there, they weren't real?" I asked. "Oh no, they're as real as they come. You were in actual danger the whole time. We have intervention always ready, but sometimes accidents do happen. This is the process the candidates are subjected to. Out of 43 applicants, you were the one to make it to the end." "So you want me to work for you?" I looked at Sam, who had a neutral expression on his face, then back at the man. "What if I refuse?" "Then you get a slightly higher compensation that was mentioned in the ad, and you go home and look for another job," the man shrugged. "I could go to the police and rat you out," I replied. You could tell them everything, but you'd find that the police found no trace of anything you mentioned, no ghosts, no monsters, not even an ad listed for the company that you mentioned. In fact, that company doesn't even exist. It's not registered anywhere. There's nothing, except for an old abandoned building." He motioned for someone to come to the side. A woman approached me with a pen and paper she handed me. At one glance, I realized that it was a contract for the company as a security guard. And the compensation was shocking, just to say the least. The amount I could finally cover my bills with and finally move out of the shithole that I live in now. The man continued. "You could walk away, go to the police, or you could work for us. Help the world and the fragile residents by keeping them safe from the horrors that you witnessed, because their safety is our success." He smiled. I clicked the pen over and over, just looking at the man's smug face. Then at Sam. He nodded subtly to me as I looked over at the contract once more. It's so much money. Before I could change my mind, I signed the contract and handed it back to the lady. The man smiled widely, then stood up and shook my hand as he said, "Welcome to the company." Well, that was a damn good story, if I do say so myself. I really like this author, and you guys should go check out his book on Amazon and his Facebook page. Both will be linked in the description, naturally. Thank you, Boris, again. And while we're on the subject of thank yous, it is time to thank the best and most amazing patrons in the world. Dan R., Paul Z., Cody V., Chaos X, Mr. Swiston, Official Jerboa, JY Pyromancer, Hayden MH, Ethan A, Dark Side of the Bear, Daniel H, Maximilian Charles P. If you're a patron and you made it this far into the video, make sure you message me over on Patreon if you feel like doing a short, at most 5-minute narration for a compilation I'm putting together. I would love to get some patron voices and some other voices in there. So if you're interested, please go hit up my Patreon, or hit me up on Patreon. And if you're not a patron and you made it this far, why? Become a patron right now. What are you doing? Thank you.